Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meets civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Boerne ISD trustee and owner of the Boerne Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Boerne City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros. Ready, aim, ceasefire.
Good morning, Kendall County. This is Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And today we've got a special guest. We've got Kendall County Judge Shane Stolarczyk. And he is visiting with us ahead of the election. And welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for the invitation to join you.
All right. Well, we got some fun questions for you, some hard questions. And then there'll be a quiz after this.
Yeah, promise to take it easy on me. I'm a little nervous.
All right. Well, let's jump in. Our first question for you this morning is, what steps will you take to address the traffic congestion at the Hurf Road and State Highway 46 intersection?
Well, one of my main priorities since becoming county judge was to get us a seat at the table on AMPO, because AMPO is one of the key organizations that deals with transportation throughout the state. And without having a seat at that table, we didn't have someone to advocate for the changes that we need to make at that particular intersection, as well as to advocate for funding to pay for it, because we know the construction of new infrastructure is astronomically high and that we don't have the funds locally to do it. Mm-hmm. So now that we got the seat there, we've been working to get the project that was slated for 2027 escalated up, because right now we were told that project is now being pushed back to 2032 for funding. And that project was supposed to add several more turn lanes, and it was anticipated to reduce the wait time from about 298 seconds down to 30 seconds, because that area has been rated at service level F, which means severe congestion, meaning drivers often sit through multiple cycles. But my concern is that by waiting to 2032, we're already behind the eight ball there. And so my goal is to really focus on using our reserve savings, because I've been an advocate of being a strong financial steward of the taxpayer dollar, with part of it being focused on building a big reserve fund, think a savings account, because these road projects require investment from the local governmental entities to get them done. And so we offered to contribute $1 million for that first project. And it still is being pushed back. So what my goal is to use some of our reserve savings, meet with the folks at AMPO and TxDOT, and see if we can't offer an incentive to get that project moved up in the rankings, either whether it be we offer a larger contribution from the county, or we offer to do some of the engineering schematics to make this happen sooner. So it's just trying to think outside the box of how we prioritize this, because waiting till 2032 to me is not an option for our citizens.
Yeah. So basically, if we're willing to put up more, they're willing to put up more or move faster.
That's, I'm new to AMPO. I'm still learning the players and how things work on this organization, but I have some insight that may help get this project moving faster. And I'm willing to do it, because over the next 4 years, I'm given the opportunity to serve the community for another 4 years. That is my number one transportation project, that intersection. But that's just part of the project, because that to me is a 10 to 20 year Band-Aid. We ultimately need to look long term for a permanent solution, because 33% of the traffic going through that intersection is trying to get to I-10. And so we need something that allows for continuous flow of traffic for the folks on State Highway 46 to get to 10, but then also allow people to off-ramp into the Boerne area. And I've been doing some research. Again, I'm just getting up to speed on how transportation works. And the 3 points that any project we do have to accomplish, we got to remove conflict points. That means areas where there's potential for collisions. We need to increase throughput, meaning how many cars pass through per hour. And then we got to scale it with the growth of the county. And one of the things that I've studied improves removing signalized intersections, because I think that is contributing to a lot of the backup, and moving toward design options that use free flow ramps. So the traffics that are making the turns have continuous flow ramps to go where they need to go. So it's been used successfully in parts of San Antonio. I think that should be part of the conversation, based on my early research, that concept should somehow be utilized for this particular intersection.
Judge, I want to go back real quick for our listeners that don't know. AMPO is Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Yes, sir.
And that is a federally required organization to help distribute our federal tax dollars that we pay into large metropolitan areas. And then that board disperses the funds across that same metropolitan area. And so now that you have a seat there, which the county didn't have before, but the city of Boerne did, you can advocate on our behalf to bring in those tax dollars into our community. And so I just want our listeners to understand how that process works. And also state that in the past, not too long ago, there was objection from people in our community to us, to the county having a seat on there. They didn't want the AMPO involved. They felt like AMPO would direct the county into like forcing us into a loop. How do you balance those concerns with now your representation on that board?
I have an opposite view of it because I think having a seat at the table is always better, because if you have an advocate there, you can direct the narrative for your citizens. By not having a seat at the table, they're in control. They can push through whatever they want because you have no one there to object or raise concerns. And that was the philosophy of the past courts. Mm-hmm. I believe, with my legal background, it's better to participate and voice your concerns, because I think you'll end up with a better result that satisfies our citizens and gets us the best result by participating in the conversation.
I agree with that, actually. Okay, our next question, we're going to go hop the interstate and go to the other side of 46. There have been several accidents with fatalities on westbound 46 going towards Pipe Creek. They're tragic, and we've all heard about them. What steps will you take to improve the safety of drivers on that stretch of road?
Obviously, the loss of life is devastating anywhere in the county. It just so happens it's been a higher level in that area. Up to this point, Kendall County has continuously worked with TxDOT to make safety a priority. And some of the safety improvements in that particular area include signage, pavement markings, and pavement grading. However, there's still accidents that are happening today. So it's going to require further investigation and work on what is the best solution. I think that, now, again, tying it back to AMPO, we're going to need AMPO to be involved because this is a TxDOT road, and that we need to urge TxDOT to make this a priority. And so one of the things that I've recently done is I've worked with several citizens to try to get a resolution passed to put TxDOT on notice that this is a high priority for our citizens. And we're actually going to be hearing that at one of the upcoming commissioners' courts, because Bandera just recently passed a resolution doing the same, because we share the border with them. Yeah. And it's more of just a statement from our citizens that we hear you, we support you, and we're going to urge TxDOT to look into this deeper, because obviously the attempts to remedy the situation out there have been ineffective. Yeah. And, again, it's a combination of road, but also some of these incidents have driver safety issues. Yeah. So it's a combination, and we just got to find the right balance of what is the best approach to addressing this right now.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something very important, that this is a state of Texas road. The county can't go in there and make the changes to it. That TxDOT's purview, that they're in control of that. And going back to the MPO for a second, or AMPO, there's no way, even if the county had the money, one, you couldn't control it. Again, it's TxDOT, but you don't have the money. You don't have the money for the Hurf and 46 intersection. We don't have that kind of money sitting around to fix Highway 46 going towards Pipe Creek the way it needs to be done, and that's why we need that partnership with AMPO.
That's absolutely right. And looking at a grander scale, it's just not state highways where counties are struggling. It's a lot of the rural roads. It's like a stat, between 7 and 10% of all accidents happen on county roads, and a lot of counties can't even afford to repair those roads. And so one of my things I've been researching and that I want to get involved with this next election cycle, after I hopefully successfully win, is there's a group of rural judges trying to push for getting a portion of the gas tax rededicated to the counties. Because back in the 1950s and 60s, a portion of our gas tax used to be kicked back to the counties for rural road funding, because there's some counties that have very little population, but hundreds of miles of roads, and they can't afford to repair them. And so this is not a new tax being imposed on our citizens. It's just a reallocation back to the counties. I don't know why it got reallocated. I got to do more research, but just think of what that could do, because Austin is cracking down on the use of property taxes. Well, if you don't want us to use property taxes, you got to find us another form of funding.
That's right.
This could provide a way for at least the counties to help improve infrastructure without having to do bonds and relying on, AMPO funding for projects. It's just trying to think outside the box of finding additional revenue sources to take care of the most pressing issues in our counties.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to look forward to getting involved with.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We got a couple minutes for one more question before we take a break. Water is on everyone's mind. What policy proposals will you pursue to address future water needs?
That's a short question.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to finish this one in 2 minutes. So one of my main things that I've been focused on, I've been actively pursuing this over the past year, is I reached out to the city of Kerrville to see what they're doing in their community. And what they're using right now is a model called ASR, Aquifer Storage Recovery. And what that is when you have an excess rainfall event, you capture the excess rainfall and you either treat it or re-inject it back into the aquifer for use during your drought conditions. And they've successfully used it. San Antonio's using it. And so my next step would be to hire a hydrogeologist to determine whether our geology underground is conducive to something like that for re-injecting it back into the aquifer, or whether we'd have to build like underground storage to capture that water. Because, the big topics like desalination and things like that, no county can afford that. Yeah. That's going to be a statewide initiative, because you got to build the structure to desalinate, then you got to build infrastructure to disseminate that throughout the state. So that's not a local issue. To me, that's more of a statewide issue. Yeah. So I'm trying to focus on solutions that are local based. So, but segueing from ASR, you're going to need a catchment system. And so I'd like to push the Prop A committee, which is the organization using our taxpayer bond initiative to buy green space and parkland, to look for a track conducive to building a reservoir or some kind of catchment basin for the ASR system. And that could be twofold. Not only does it, provide flood control, but it also provides a water catchment system for this system. So I think those are two important systems for water that I'm looking into. But then you combine that with working with builders to take on new building models, get away from the old system of drilling a well, piping in water, and start shifting to water conservation and rainwater catchment. Yeah. We've had several builders that are working responsibly with the county to put in a whole rainwater catchment development. And then they use tap to toilet, which means the water runs from tap to toilet to water in your yards, and it's just recycled. So that eliminates the evaporation and waste of water. And you need to combine it with xeriscaping and things of that nature. And so you have conservation-minded communities need to go in, because this is not only a county responsibility, but the citizens also have a responsibility as well to kind of start conserving water, because we're in a PGMA, priority groundwater management area, meaning we don't have the same water as those around us. And so when we have folks move here, they don't necessarily appreciate that. So we got to do a better job of educating. And one of the ways we can educate is the county being a role model. So integrating water conservation, rainwater catchment into our county facilities is going to be a priority for me, because I believe we should practice what we preach. If we want the citizens to do it, shouldn't we be a role model as well?
I want to say that I'm an advocate for tap to toilet, but not toilet to tap.
I agree with that. That wouldn't be the wrong way. You're going the wrong way there. Yeah.
And on that note, we are going to take a quick break so we can get things back under control. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We'll be right back with Judge Stolarczyk. Bernie has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Bernie Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Bernie Bookshop, and we pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Bernie Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Bernie at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Bernie Bookshop. Welcome back to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We've got Kendall County Judge Shane Stolarczyk, and we've been talking about water, and I'm excited to hear that you're talking about rainwater because I have rainwater, and I think it's an awesome system. And I was wondering if there's any incentives the county might propose to encourage rainwater use.
Yes. We attempted to do a tax abate or rebate or discount through the appraisal district for anyone using rainwater catchment. But after further research, it showed that it was going to have the opposite effect because your appraisals were going to go up because of the valuation of the system that you put in.
Right.
And so it was going to offset any benefit you got. And so I truly believe an incentive is something we should explore further because rainwater catchment's expensive. And if we want folks to do it and ensure we have water for future generations, we got to find a way to make sure citizens buy into the program, buy into this philosophy, and incentives are one way of doing it. So I'd really like to dig deeper and see if we can't find a way to make it work and maybe explore other counties that are utilizing a rebate or abatement system and see what they're doing and how it works without negatively impacting their citizens, because to me that's one of the best things I think we can do.
Yeah, and just my own little opinion here, anybody out there considering it, it's the best water out there. It's awesome. I love it. Okay, but now we'll get back to our next question. Many people say that the county and city of Bernie need more collaboration, but they don't all agree on what they should collaborate on. For example, some folks prefer that the county not collaborate with the city on new roadways. What does collaboration mean to you, and how will you pursue it?
Well, I believe we need to continue to collaborate with the city of Bernie because the residents in the city are also residents of Kendall County. The issues that we face impact everyone in the county, not just the ones in one section of the county. We can achieve more by working together rather than trying to handle them ourselves, like what has been done historically in the past, where we're all little islands doing our own little things. That kind of governance doesn't make any sense to me. We're always stronger when we work together. Just look at the response to the July 4th floods.
Yeah.
Everyone came together, put their differences aside if there were any, and got it done. That's what collaboration really looks like. We may not always agree, but partnerships take compromise and communication. And since I took office, I've really put a lot of effort into rebuilding the trust and communication with not only the city of Bernie, because I meet regularly with Mayor Ritchie and Ben Thatcher, but also the city of Fair Oaks, so their city manager, their mayor. I meet with our Cow Creek water partners. I meet with the Bernie Chamber of Commerce regularly. I also meet with our folks from BISD quarterly, and then as well as meet with our elected officials and department heads every month. Mm-hmm. You only know what you know, and by putting all the key players in the room with you, you guys can come up with solutions to issues before they become a bigger issue. Yeah. And so I want to continue building upon that because we've made a lot of headway and we've identified issues in the community that are only going to solve if we do it together, like Hurf River Road, water. These are not things one governmental entity can tackle alone. And so we need all hands on deck, thinking like-minded and doing what's best for the citizens. And so I'm going to push for that continued collaboration, and I think we're really heading in the right direction despite what some to the contrary may say that there's not communication. I just know I can speak for myself and my relationship with those government leaders, and it's a strong relationship.
Okay. Judge, let's shift over to property taxes for a moment. What would you say is the right policy prescription for lowering our property taxes?
Cutting waste and living within your means. So since my tenure, I've continued to tighten the budget and cut waste. We brought in dedicated personnel, a purchasing agent, as well as a grant coordinator to reduce wasteful spending and bring in additional funding to help offset necessary projects in our budget. So just the past year alone, our grant coordinator brought in over $1 million of additional revenue to the county. And so that's money we didn't have before that we can use to kind of get projects funded. 2 of the past 3 years, because of these steps we've made, we've been able to reduce the county tax rate, and it remained the same in the 3rd year. So your tax rate's not increased since I took office. Unfortunately, the appraisals on some homes have gone up, so not everyone has benefited from these, but that is something controlled by the state and the appraisal districts. They're being pushed to get their appraisal values up or face the risk of the state taking over the appraisal districts. So this is beyond we're staying in our lane and doing everything we can locally to help, but this is a bigger statewide initiative that needs to be addressed on how to reduce property taxes, because not everyone is as fiscally responsible as us. We're going to be debt-free in 6 years if we maintain this course. Our last 2 major bonds are going to be paid off in less than 6 years, and the only outstanding bond after that will be the remainder of the Proposition A bond, that 20 million bond that was passed by 66% of the voters. That's it. Not many governments or counties can say they're almost debt-free and living within their means. So basically, we balanced the budget this year without using reserve funds for daily operations. Everyone's being thoughtful of the taxpayer dollar under my leadership, because we're all struggling. The economy's tough, inflation's tough, and now the war is having even more of a negative impact on everyone's pocketbook. So we got to tighten up our belts this next cycle here in budget.
This is sort of a yes or no, why kind of question. Are you an advocate for growth? Why or why not? And who should decide what happens in Kendall County?
You can't stop growth. So I'm an advocate for responsible growth. And that means having strong development regulations, strong fire code, and holding everyone to the same standard, whether you're a developer, citizen, and working with and encouraging builders to start following the conservation models that we kind of just discussed about rainwater catchment and water conservation, because it doesn't matter how much money is pumped into here economically for economic development, whether you build $10 million homes. If we don't have water, there's no value. None of these businesses are going to stay here. Everyone's home prices are going to dip. So we need to focus and work with builders on these conservation efforts. And so that's what responsible growth to me is. And, you know, we've taken steps to increase the lot size for a well from 6 acres to 10. That's had some positive impact. I believe we continue to strengthen our rules to make sure there's like no building in the floodplain or floodways, because that is what I think made the difference with the July 4th floods. When I flew the county and flew over Kerr, you could see a difference. They allowed building close to the river, and that's where all the devastation happened, versus we had some grandfathered developments or homes along the Guadalupe and Comfort. Those were the few homes impacted. Everywhere else in the county, we didn't allow that kind of development. The only loss was farm structures and farm fences, and so property damage, stuff that we can recover from versus the loss of life. And so those are the kind of things that I think mean to have responsible growth, holding people to our standards, enforcing them, and not giving special treatment to developers who want to, you know, push the limits and do things that are not in line with our philosophies on growth out here.
It's interesting, whenever something new is proposed, spend 5 minutes on Facebook and there are people out there saying, oh my gosh, you know, why won't these people shut it down? You know, referring to, you know, county or city officials. But you're really hamstrung in what you're able to do, and so you have to be very creative. You mentioned, you know, looking at the fire codes and whatnot. So I'm going to go back to that question of who should decide what happens in Kendall County. It's not really you out there picking winners and losers.
Correct. I believe local control is the most important type of government, because your local leaders know you, they know your community better than the folks in Austin. Yeah. Austin is trying to take a one-size-fits-all approach and say, we're going to set the tone, we're going to set the rules, you follow them. And right now, the way county government's structured is we are limited to following state statute.
Right.
If there's a state statute that controls, we must follow it. And if we deviate, that's where we get into trouble. So one of our strongest tools, obviously the fire code, our development regs, but anything that impacts the health, safety, welfare of the citizens is kind of this catch-all provision. That's one of our last remaining tools. And so I've been an advocate with some other county judges to try to push Austin to give rural counties local control. Because if we lose this local control, we're going to end up like Bulverde, Austin, San Antonio, because Austin wants to grow and become one of the biggest economic business destinations in the world, but it's having a negative impact on us rural counties, and we're going to start losing our small town character if we're bound to follow what the state mandates. Austin's concern is that you have some rogue counties and cities that are just doing everything, putting moratoriums on this, moratoriums on that, and a lot of times they're not legally justified. They're trying to stop that, but they need to start trusting some of the local leaders to make the decisions for their people. And that's just not happening right now. And so I kind of take issue with that. But again, there's a lot more judges out there that feel that way than I do. It's just a continue. Every year we go to legislature and there's people chipping away at our local government and our ability to lead our communities in a way we seem fit.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to the last question. This is the toughest one of all the questions we've asked you so far, and this could make or break your election.
Okay.
All right. This one's coming from Chef Mark Sierra at Compadres, and he wants to know, Fideo or Menudo?
All right. I love Compadres, and I mean no offense by this, but I'll take a good kielbasa any day over either of those.
Oh, my goodness.
Like that.
All right.
Hey, I'm 100% Polish. What can I say?
Hey, Chef, you heard.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on from that very quickly. We always talk about a book that we got at the bookstore, and today I brought in The Naturalist Guide to the Texas Hill Country by Mark Gustafson. It's a great little guide. It's basically a field guide to all kinds of plants, animals, and what's going on in the hill country. We got it at the Bernie Bookshop. It's a great little book. I love it. If you're a landowner, you should probably have a copy of this. And I think that is it. I think we've run out of time. And thank you, Judge Stolarczyk, and thank you, everybody, for listening to us. If you miss any of it, you can always go to bernieradio.com and listen to the podcast, repeat this or any of our other episodes, or any of their other great podcasts. And we'll see you next week.